What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of The Kevin Moore Show, which is sponsored by my website, channeling.com. Now my guest today is Hemma. Now Hemma is an intuitive energy healer trained in Theta Healing. She is also a serial entrepreneur and investor. Now in her healing practice, she specializes in removing energetic blocks in entrepreneurial startup and creativity. Now, her purpose is to show you how to access your divine power as a creator in order to experience the life you truly deserve using your soul's unique blueprint. She is the creator of the Ascended Entrepreneurial Mastery Program, which shows you how to bridge the gap between your spiritual practice and your business so that you can change the planet and upgrade our civilization. Hemma Haridin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. One of my first guests in many, many weeks since doing interviews, and it's great to have you on. I've had a chance to read some of your book, and it's a really interesting book, and I wanted to get you on once I'd read the whole book, but I thought, you know what, now's the time to do this interview. From Homeless to Healer, and so much resonates with what you put into this book, especially with the entrepreneur stuff, which we're going to touch on as well. Just give the audience a bit of background, in your journey, just to begin with. Then.
Yeah. So the journey from homeless to healer, just to sum it up, started around the age of 23 when I opened my first company, coming out of the homeless shelter. Give you the complete fast forward version. 4 years later, I found myself in the middle of a spiritual awakening, sold my companies, remembered my abilities as a healer, and just wanted to completely disconnect from the 3D world to go deeper into higher self and deeper into meditation and connecting with my multidimensional aspects. And here we are now. So much has come in a very accelerated amount of time from that initial pull into spirituality and then to fully realizing myself, really.
Yeah, I mean, were you sort of looking into spirituality before that process? I mean, were there any sort of books that sort of took your fancy that really got you onto that journey?
Before, when I was an entrepreneur, not really. I was really in the material world and mostly reading self-improvement, which you could say is a little bit leaning towards that personal development, which then is the gateway into spirituality. But before the awakening, or before what I felt was a wave of energy that was just pulling me into waking up, I didn't really dive into spirituality. I was raised Hindu, so there's just definitely that aspect of, yoga and all of those traditions. But for me, it was just a way of life. I didn't even consider it spirituality.
No, no, right. And I mean, what was that catalyst then? Was the biggest wake up call for you to look into the idea that you're more than your body then?
My grandfather passed away, and in his passing on his hospital bed, we started telepathic communication. It was just a spontaneous communication because he was very sick. He had Alzheimer's and he couldn't speak. And as I was at his bedside, I was getting messages from him, and I was hearing all of these things. And one of the things was, "You are a healer, and now you need to do this." And so it was just like this complete, breaking open of what just happened to me. And so I just dove right into that.
Wow. So, okay. And what was that like? Was that a clairaudience, just a knowing, or downloads, or what?
No, I think it was clear audience. It was very clear that it was his voice that was coming into my mind, speaking into me. And then immediately after that, I would say I started receiving downloads from my own higher self. And then that's when the knowing kicked in, because since it was my own higher self, it was my voice. And it was just me remembering my voice before the incarnation, and me remembering the feeling of what it felt like to be disincarnate, or to be out of the body, and knowing that that connection was still there.
Yeah. I mean, what was that voice saying to you initially? What were some of the sort of, if you could remember any of the sort of conversations? And as you say, it's just your voice talking back to you, but it was a wiser, deeper, more loving side of you, do you think?
Yes, much wiser, much deeper, much more loving. And it was telling me that I was on the wrong path and everything in my life was wrong. And I had to get rid of everything in my life and embark on a spiritual journey. I don't use that word spiritual much more anymore, because once you incorporate to a certain level, it's just your state of being. But back then, there was this disconnection between who I was on 3D in this body, and then who that higher self was.
Right. Wow. Okay. Okay. So going back just a little bit here, back to your sort of teenage years, and maybe something that I've sort of touched on in the book as well, was obviously, it's called From Homeless to Healer. So just tell us about growing up, and what was the homeless situation?
So, I had my daughter at 17. So that was one of the first biggest catalysts in my life to kind of grow up really fast and have to take responsibility on, and not just kind of wander around this planet, with no direction. Yeah. And I was also in a relationship, and we quickly got married right after her birth. And things were very tough. But I was in college also. That was another thing. When I was in college, I knew that this wasn't it. This wasn't for me. I was supposed to become a CPA. And in the process of being in school and being in that system, it didn't feel right, and it didn't feel good. So I dropped out to open my businesses. But before all of that happened, there was just a point in my family where I was going so outside of the norm that they weren't accepting. They weren't accepting of my path and what I was choosing. And so I kind of just got put out on my own. I actually just put myself in the shelter because I didn't want to stay in my family situation, and I had nowhere else to go. And very quickly, though, I have to say I was not there for more than 6 months before I was able to get myself out. And the business opportunity came while I was there. And it was this beautiful set of synchronistic events that obviously when you're in it, you don't know what's happening. But one of my cousins actually sent me just like, back then Craigslist was a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing, but she sent me like a link to, I'm not online much these days. I don't know. She sent me a link to this tax franchise, and they wanted a manager. And I had learned, taught myself how to do taxes because I was on this CPA track. And I did the interview for that. And I think it was like 6 months before they contacted me again. But when they contacted me, the location was just 5 minutes from that shelter. So as soon as I went into the shelter, and then I got the job, and then when I was in there, realized that I wanted to own one. I knew I had this entrepreneurial spirit inside of me and I wanted to own something. And I very quickly figured out how to do that. And then a friend came to me to lend me money to start up my own thing. So I do go into like the details in the book, but that's really just the brief of it, how it happened so quickly, so fast, where it was kind of like this this destiny, this thing that was supposed to happen to me, and I allowed myself to just step up into it.
So you was going to become a an accountant, and of course, yeah, you walked out on that. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, well, yeah, I suppose you, yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with accountancy, but yeah, I mean, if it was really calling you, oh, well, you know, that's a sort of, you know, common thing with people's lives, isn't it? They're doing something that they don't want to do, and you know,
Mhm.
pulling away from that is difficult. But you had a small child at the time as well. I mean, that would have
Mhm.
even been more difficult, you know.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, well, that wasn't an easy decision, and that's what I'm getting to that
No,
you made at the
not.
time. Yeah, but did you go on your gut? Did you go with your head? Did you go with your
No, I
heart?
went with my gut.
Yeah.
Like I just, and my heart. I would say my gut and my heart because it was actually hurting more to be in school. Like it was hurt, like it was just taking so much from me to be in school. And I was like, I'm just not going to do this with my life. There has to be another way. There has to be another way. And I've always been determined to find another way to do things. And that's what I just followed.
Okay. Okay. So then, moving forward to obviously, you said your grandfather had passed, and that's what caused the a communication. Well, it caused you to open up, didn't it? In a sense.
Mhm.
But you could have gone down a different road. You could have you know have not listened, or you could have listened, but you know still taken a different path. Well, I mean, why this particular path then? Do you think?
Because it felt so good. Like it felt, when that happened, it felt so natural. And I felt like, okay, this is what has been missing my entire life. And at that point, when somebody very dear to you passes, you don't really want to do anything in your old life anymore. You don't want to continue. You get to a point where you're like, well, what is the point? Right? Where if we're all gonna die anyway, what is the point? And that's where I was at. I was like, I'm not happy in this business. I'm not happy in my marriage. What's the point of all of this?
Right. Right. Well, yeah, and it's never easy to end that marriage, is it? In a sense, because it's just not. You know, no matter how long you've been with someone. Um,
Yeah, it was 11 years at that point, so
11,
it
yeah,
was
well,
quite a while.
11 years. That's okay, but still, you know, yeah, yeah. What do they call that time? It's almost like a dark night of the soul, or it's
Right.
you know. And how old were you when that was happening?
So this was 2013, so I want to be accurate. I'm not sure. I'm 33, so it was around 27 or 28 years old.
27. So getting on to 30, and then a massive change happens, which seems to be the case for a lot of people. That at
Yep.
30, that it is a catalyst
Yep.
for some sort of change or some different options in your life.
Yep.
Okay, and was it an amicable divorce, or were you guys able to be friends? I mean, what
Um,
was it teaching you to go through that? That's what I'm getting to.
so what it was teaching me was that I should have left earlier, number one. I kind of knew internally that, things were over, but I stayed obviously for safety, security, stability, the child that's involved. But ultimately, in the end, was just follow your heart, follow what your heart wants, and don't stay in toxic situations that are not serving you. So when I was really being pushed to that point, when I say being pushed, that's because the communication with higher self was so strong, and it was so clear to me the patterns that were happening and the wounding and everything that was there that it almost felt like I had no choice. I had to leave, and that made it easy. So I just packed the bag again and then left the house and just went to
Yeah.
stay with friends and family.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what was the journey onward from there? I mean, obviously, you're sort of you've got this gift. You know, did you go to work on this gift? Were you
Mhm.
giving people readings? I mean, what happened? How was that integrated into the entrepreneurship that you've got to now?
Yeah, so when I started having the awakening, I also got into neuroscience, like just wanting to study the brain and what was happening in the brain. And I came across this book, and it was one of these just small ebooks. I can't even recall the title, but it was just all about reprogramming your mind. And then at the end of the book, they mentioned something about the theta brainwaves. So I started to Google the theta waves. And that's when I came across the modality Theta Healing. And so I just went to the center to do a meditation. They had some free meditation and healing circle going on. And the moment that I walked into that place, I just knew that's where I was supposed to be. And immediately just took one of the classes and then just realized what the gift was, and immediately started seeing clients like just from that class. They just were like, yes, you're a healer. This is what needs to happen. And immediately clients started coming in.
Wow, it was that quick. Oh my gosh. Um, yeah, yeah. Well. I mean, again, a lot of people out there, who know that they're a healer, but they don't. They they won't take that next step to use their gifts. And do you think sometimes you can get pushed into a direction where you've got to face up to that part of you?
Yes, and that's exactly what was happening to me. And because I love taking risks and I love expanding and I love pushing myself, of course I was going to jump into it. And also at the same time, because it felt so right. It felt so right and everything was coming in and I was starting to remember. So going into that modality and them teaching me how to directly connect into source, which I never really actively did before that, just helped me remember so much more, and also helped me remember that I had this connection my entire life, but just didn't really bring it to the forefront. And so now I was able to bring it to the forefront and experience all of those bliss states and experience that connection and then heal with it. So I knew that it was going to become my next business. Like I knew that it was going to be the next thing that I wanted to do.
Absolutely. And what were some of the readings like? What were some of the old sessions like, in a sense, with the healing? I mean, how would what would come to you? So a client comes to you, for example, and is it different for every client, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's different for every client because it just depends on what they are going through at that point. So I would just connect in, I would just hold their hands and connect in, and I would just receive the information of what they were feeling, and then you just chat with them. You talk to them about what's going on in their life, and then you're connecting into source energy. So you're receiving all of this information, and you're able to give them a viewpoint on which they can't see, and that helps facilitate the healing for them. And then in that modality, you also clear beliefs. So you see patterns and you see the beliefs that were created, and you're able to just give them downloads. So instead of them waiting for a download to happen to them naturally, you're facilitating a download process and a clearing process for them.
So are you connecting to their higher self, do you think?
So you're connecting to source, and then you're also connecting to their higher self to see what's best for them. You're connecting to source to do the healing, but then your higher self is also communicating what is needed for them as well.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. And how? Well, what are some of the common things people come to you for now? Then, in a sense, is
Well, I laugh because I just recently just upgraded everything. So that lasted about a year for me in that modality. And I kept getting pulled deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I quit my practice, and I actually had a really good practice in New York. But I was getting pulled deeper to connect to higher self, to merge all of my aspects, to come deeper into my awakening, and to have that, to not only just connect to source, but become source itself. And that was something that the modality couldn't lead me to, because it was all about connecting to creator. And I was just coming into the remembering that, no, I am creator, I am source, I am God, I am all of it. And so I had to leave that to dive deeper into myself. And I did that. And so now where I am right now, it's in the school that I have and in the program that I have, it's connecting through attunement energy, which is a very specific set of codes for it is downloads, but it's very specific based on what energy is needed to be cleared. And it is still based fully in source, but there's something about it that has a deeper level of information. Because what I find now is that beings that are coming to me now are way more advanced than who was originally coming to me. So I know that there have been several waves of awakening that have happened. And so people do accelerate very quickly. And the ones that are accelerating very quickly are the ones that are coming to me. So that pushed me into expanding even more to be able to meet them and be able to see them, because they're coming in knowing that they are all that is. They are knowing that they're source, but they're not quite able to anchor it or integrate it onto 3D. And in my essence, I'm able to do that. I'm able to pull it in and anchor in all of that information and then manifest and create from that place. So that's the energy that we're using now.
Well, absolutely. So, okay, so and that's available on your website, which will link just in the description below, and it's coming up on the screen right now. Do you know what the website is?
It's a very long website, but it's eighthchakrawisdom.teachable.com. And then there are other courses when you click on that link.
Absolutely. Well, that's if just again, just go in the description below, and you'll be able to go straight to the website. Yeah, because you go on under the names of sort of like a healer, entrepreneur, investor, but where's the entrepreneur and investor in the work that you're doing if you're kind of more of a one-to-one healer with people?
So we also, and when I say we, because I have a co-founder, Nina. So I moved away from the one-on-ones, and so we created the school and created multiple courses to go with that. And then in addition to the healings and the eighth chakra activations, we have a course that we teach entrepreneurship. So we've built an entire business around healing, and it is a very structured process that we take people through. And what I also have as part of my company, which is another division of the healing, is cryptocurrency trading and investing in projects that are for awakened beings, investing in newer technologies for a cleaner earth, for new systems to come in. So that's a whole other side. But for me, it's just really all one thing.
It's all one thing, isn't it? So do you give it? Obviously you've been in business previously before you had your awakening, and now you're obviously are you giving advice to those who have are sort of awakened beings in a sense that they know that they're more than just their body, and they're looking to do something a bit more conscious with their business and with the work they're doing? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. So I mean, okay, so obviously there's let's just bring up the name Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, right? And a guy that does a lot on YouTube right now is all about giving, giving, giving. And I look at that particular person sometimes as a sort of a kick up my ass, but also he is successful, but he's very awakened. But he's almost, it's like he would never use this maybe the terminology. He is an awakened soul.
Mm-hmm. So I want people to be comfortable using the terminology that they're awakened soul creating a business, because we also talk about creating from your blueprint, which is really the design that you came in with. Once you connect to higher self, you see that blueprint and you can course correct your path to put you on whatever that highest vision was for you, because entrepreneurship comes from this vision that's really coming from your soul, right? It's coming from some sort of place where you knew you came here to do this. And those that are really successful entrepreneurs, it is a drive that they cannot explain to anyone else. And it is coming from that place. What's important is that to be an awakened entrepreneur, that you're doing it not just to serve yourself and to buy a couple of jets and XYZ and whatever properties and blah, blah, blah mansion on the side of the beach, but you're doing it to assist Earth in what needs to happen for her healing and for her evolution and for her growth. So the companies that we like to work with, the beings that we like to work with, are ones that are creating new technologies and new products to support that.
Well, what about obviously, not just Mother Earth. I mean, she's important, but obviously other people as well. And us humans. I mean, what about helping others? I mean, that's a big thing as well, isn't it? Coming here to do something in business that's going to help others. But then, don't most businesses really? They wouldn't be they wouldn't work if they didn't help others. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So it's all about serving. So if we can create that business and create whatever we're creating to make sure that as we're helping other beings, we are also creating sustainability for the earth, which is what business is not necessarily doing right now. We're so focused on creating products and helping each other, and maybe earth is secondary in that, right? Because products that we're creating may not be sustainable for her growth. It's cutting down her forest, whatever is happening. So we have to look at it wholly, and we have to look at it as an interconnected system where if we're going to be in service to each other, and even if we're going to be coaching or doing whatever, well, where are the funds for your company going? What are you investing in? Where's your money going? How are you exchanging in a way that's going to provide this growth and evolution for everyone, Earth included?
Right, right. Okay. Well, that's some big questions, I suppose. As long as if you've got your basic needs met, do you know what I mean? And you're able
Hmm.
to, build a business as well on top of that and everything else. Yeah. Yeah. Should we? I mean, they're not really questions I've asked myself much. I'll be honest with you. Um, but I suppose in this conversation we're talking about businesses that are quite scaled in a sense, aren't we? In
It
some.
doesn't have to be scaled.
No,
That's the thing.
no.
It
Okay.
does not have to be scaled. You start the foundation with that principle. When you start your foundation with that principle, that's also when you activate all of those spiritual principles in your life for wealth to flow. So there's this new direction that has to take place when you are just a startup, right? We're still in startup phase. My company's we haven't scaled just yet. But we are making sure that we're building everything on those foundations and on those principles. And we know that we're activating the principles of Earth and Mother Nature and infinite supply and all of that, good stuff that Law of Attraction talks about. And we're putting it and really bringing it here and seeing how it gets created and manifested here. And we're building on top of that.
Well, what does that
So it
look?
is.
What does that look like for you then? How does that work in your business?
How does that work in our business? Every product that we choose to, even like when our team comes together and what we're eating and what toilet paper we're using, just down to the very things. Is the company sustainable? How are they sourcing its bamboo toilet paper? Where is the food coming from? Is it from a local farm?
Hmm.
Those are the simplest things, and
Yep.
that's what we start out with.
Okay. Well, no, thank you for thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Um,
The toilet paper
the
part,
toilet paper.
especially.
No, hey, it's important. I mean, we get through a lot of it. Come on. Um,
Exactly.
I
I
can.
just I make that point to see, like, this is
Yeah.
how simple it is. It
Yeah.
doesn't
That's
have to
how
be.
simple it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So the reason I mentioned like someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, and those who don't know him, just you can search him online, is that a lot of these big businesses, those people in charge of the big business are normally the more awakened ones in a sense.
Yes. Yes.
But are they, it's that paradox as well. Is that yeah, they're acting awakened, but they may not be aware of their awakenedness in a sense that they've
Mhm.
actually tapped into a part of themselves that they're channeling their higher selves, and they're really. I mean, most of them talk about the intuition. Listen to my gut feeling. Well,
Mhm.
that's what we would call out the higher connecting to a part of your soul, that higher self part.
Mhm. So one thing that I want to say to that, and this is going to be a very strong statement, that yes, they are connected, they are awakened beings, but they are not aware at that highest level. They're not aware in that interconnected self, in all that is. They are operating still from a place of 3D, of being on this dimension and having to create on this dimension. And they are not allowing that merger of higher self to come through, because if they allow that merger, then their business practices won't necessarily work in the same way. So there is separation that is still happening. So there's just a glimpsing of higher self, but not
Yeah.
a full merging with higher self.
Yeah. Well, okay then. I mean, I'm not that awakened, right? I won't say I am, right? But I know that I'm more than my body, and I know that there's other realities out there, and there's all sorts of wonderful things that I've come from and will go back to.
Mhm.
But we are here. We are here to have this human experience, not to, escape it in a sense.
Mm.
So, I mean, okay, so if they were more awakened from that perspective that you've just mentioned there, what would the outcome look like for them? Would they maybe? I mean, what is not spiritual? What is not God? I mean,
Mhm. Right.
I mean, what is not? I mean, I suppose as a soul, we're here to judge for ourselves, aren't we? There's nothing above us that's saying, don't do that.
Mhm.
It's complete free will to play out whatever game you want. But how much from
Mhm.
love, maybe, in what you're doing, did you come from?
Hmm. Because so I can't give specific. I know who Gary is, but I haven't really seen
No,
anything
I mean, I'm
recent, so
just
I can't give
mentioning
like a
his name.
specific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But those type of beings, it's like when you listen to their content and you listen to the words that they're saying, it's still coming from this place of like we're separate and drive and do this and do that and create this and this. So it's not that it's not spiritual, it's beautiful, but it's coming from the human will, it's coming from the personal will. There's a collective will. There is a collective will where we can work in harmony and work in unison and bring everyone in to the space and not have to be the only ones doing that drive and doing the personal manifesting and f everybody else around us, and let's go and be on this ambition high. There's a difference, and okay, I'm not saying that that's not spiritual. I had that ambition, I had that drive, I was creating different sorts of companies, but now being in this place, it's like, well, no, this is what we're moving into, to be able to work together, to be able to come together as a collective, because capitalism, look what it's doing to our planet, the way it exists right now. There's got to be a new way. And what does that way look like? Surrender to higher self and let higher self show you what that picture looks like, and then create from that place. And that surrender is what most entrepreneurs are afraid of, because they're going to have to take apart their businesses to rebuild on a new foundation.
I suppose what you say, if you go through higher self, then you're probably you're on your path then to, and so basically to go through higher self, does it, you've got to be prepared to listen to that voice within, haven't you? And the voice
Yes.
within, as you said, is your own voice. It's that one that you have conversations with sometimes. So if you're about to make a decision to do whatever, if you can just tune into that, then you might be surprised that, it may say, go for it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's,
Yeah. So, for example, it's like when I knew that I had to leave my practice behind and go deeper into my awakening, everything on 3D was like, you have a kid to feed, you're a single mother, what are you doing? But higher self was like, no, do this thing and watch what happens. And I did the thing. And yes, it was scary. And yes, I went back into lack. But I knew I'm always supported by the universe. I knew that I'm always supported by all that is and all that I am. And I just followed that, and I
See,
allowed for that period to
that's the
happen.
scary part, isn't it? Of saying Geronimo, and it's like shit, it's scary, yeah, it's not easy, and sometimes you have to work with people, don't you, to make things happen. It's not just about you. You've got to allow others to come into your space to help you on that journey.
Yeah, exactly. We're not here to do it alone, or else we wouldn't be in bodies. Yeah. I mean, like we wouldn't be in separate bodies if we were here to do it alone. But you do have to get yourself to a certain level before you can really invite others into that space to help you co-create.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll get into being alone and everything else. Just a moment. I want to get back to what you were saying there, but just obviously with the entrepreneur stuff. You talk about, entrepreneurship means freedom. That's
Mhm.
that sort of screamed out to me. That did. And when you say freedom, you mean freedom that. We've always got a boss, haven't we? No matter who we work, no matter if we work for ourselves, right? That
Mhm.
the customer is the boss. But you just mean that freedom and different perspective, yeah?
Yeah, I mean it on many levels, right?
Yeah.
On Earth right now, we are not operating in our sovereignty as souls. Just point blank, right? Like the majority of the collective, the majority of people on earth are not operating in their sovereignty. They're in contracts or in companies with things that don't make them happy. That's not being in your sovereignty, because it's not an even exchange,
But then
right?
not everyone's a builder,
I
are they?
love that. I love that you use that word. But then also, even those that are here to support the builders, are they in companies that are aligned to what they're here truly here to support, right? And that may not be the case. And the reason why that's not the case is because the builders that are there are not creating. I don't want to say not creating, but there are not enough companies out there that have that builder, have that CEO that's truly creating from that highest place to allow others to then come in and support that foundation, which is why more of us in that awakening phase do have to come into our blueprints and what we're here to do to create that whole system, that whole new system. So entrepreneurship equals freedom in the sense of you are allowed to create and you are allowed to receive income based on what you create, based on your content, based on what is coming through you, based on your unique identity. And that is true freedom. entrepreneurship was not meant for you to build a business based on some other system, based on what you think you're supposed to be doing because this is what society wants right now. That's not true entrepreneurship. And in the age that we're in right now with YouTube, with all the tools and the resources that we have, you can create whatever you want.
It's true. I wouldn't be doing this show otherwise. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm only a small channel, but even for someone like me, yeah, it just wouldn't be around. I mean, I say to people now, my talk show is just on YouTube. Yes, I'm going to podcast soon, but I mean, yeah, you're right. It's such a different environment out there, isn't it? It's such a different culture
Mhm.
in what we can do now. Yeah. So I mean. And whatever it is you're driven to do, a spiritual business, it could look very different from the outside.
Mhm.
I mean, what I'm trying to say is that people have different wants, don't they? There may be something they want to do that's completely, it's not, doing, giving readings or something like that. It could be very, very different, couldn't it? Type of
Yeah,
business.
I mean, because just for example, the cryptocurrency aspect of my company, when I'm at cryptocurrency conferences, nobody's talking about spirituality really for the most part. They're talking about crypto and GDP and ROIs, right? But I know my essence and I know I'm there because I love this new system of exchange and I want to see where it leads. And I love the projects that crypto is actually helping to birth, right? Universal basic income. Like they have all these grand dreams of what they're creating and how to solve the world's problems. And I want to be a part of that. So, no, it doesn't look spiritual in that aspect, but I know that I'm doing it for that unification and that harmony
Yeah.
and to solve the problems that exist.
I got you. And do you find it difficult, not being around people who are like-minded when you're in those environments? Because you talk about that, you love it, but you also have to love the people who are not awake as well.
Yeah, so I do. I do, and I see everybody's role in everything, and which is why I always suggest, merge with higher self because you will love everyone and everything, and you will not judge, and you will see beings for who they are and what they're here to do, and you'll be able to honor that. And in honoring that, you're going to honor yourself, and you're going to allow your gifts to explode. You're going to allow your gifts to come through, and you're going to allow that exchange to happen. Yeah, it can be, but then that's where you gotta just humble yourself for a second, right? Like we all do have to just take that like for a second and just let the other person go off and do what they need to do, even at our expense, and project on us. And sometimes you just have to sit there and not say a word and just really hold that space. And I think that's what I'm the master of, is that compassion and holding that space because people are very triggered by me all the time and project on me all the time in everything that I say and do and in the way that I
Well, because
move. And I'm just like,
you're asking for it, aren't you? Because you're saying to the universe, look, I won't be triggered. And it's like, okay, then how about this person? Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
And then you talk about forgiveness and also with compassion equals that you won't say the word that, well, I won't forget them, because we say, don't we, I'll forgive but I won't forget, but that's not
Mhm.
true sort of compassion and love in a sense. You wouldn't, but then
Well, you don't forget because you want to have discernment. You want to have learned discernment,
well,
right?
yeah, yeah, you can't forget, sorry, yeah, yeah. No, you can't forget. But you can forgive. But then you may forgive, and then then that person comes back and does the same thing to you again in a much more vicious way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
But it's all a test, isn't it? It's all
mm,
it's all a
mm,
test. It's up to us. What do we want? How do we want to be
mm,
presented by ourselves in that moment when stuff happens? And
mm. Well, you know what? Compassion is not always just sweetness. Not at all. Sometimes compassion is harsh, and sometimes in compassion, you have to put up boundaries and you have to honor yourself. So you have to have compassion for yourself first and honor your boundaries and yourself and who you are and what you stand for. And then make sure no one crosses that line and make sure that you're not, you know, doing anything in an angry way to them, but that you're holding your stance. And that's usually what triggers people when you hold your stance and you hold your knowing. And that's where it's tough because then we think compassion has to look like you petting that person and going, oh no, I didn't mean it. Sometimes I just stand and like, no, this is what it is, and this is what's going to happen. And you need to honor that in me.
yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Um, no, that's true. Well, Well, obviously, we're all here for different reasons, aren't we? And as you said before, it's to get into your blueprint, which I think you called your tone as well sometimes, um,
Yes.
to really, can you, I mean, if people wanted to have a session with yourself to get into their blueprint, is that something that you can tune into or you can help them with?
Yeah, so what I suggest, because I don't do one-on-ones really anymore,
No,
but
no.
I do have a free course called Mastering Your Blueprint, where I do an energetic attunement on that course. So we'll put the link there for everyone. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, we'll make sure, as I said before, that'll be linked up in this. Um, uh, uh, do you come from intuition at any time when you're doing your work? Is that play a big part in your life? Intuition. That,
Well, I would say, after you merge with higher self, there's no need for intuition anymore.
right,
You're
right.
just in knowing, but the road to get there is intuition. The
Okay.
road to get there is the gut feeling.
You know what? Yeah, yeah. The cut. Yeah. One other thing I just wanted to go back to when we were just saying that you could have any business doing whatever. Sometimes having a business serve in the dark, in service to the dark. Sometimes, I mean, well, what people might call the dark. Um, there's, there is that side of the work as well, isn't there? All of the conversation.
Well, I would say that when you look at it from this unified place, there is no light and dark. There is no light and dark, right? There's just a spectrum. There's a spectrum of experience. There's a spectrum of polarity that we're experiencing here. So whatever your work looks like, whether you're working with tarot or spells or whatever it looks like, you're doing your work in some way. However, if it feels good to you, then go right ahead, continue that. That's your path. But if it's causing you pain and suffering, that may not be your highest truth,
Well,
and maybe you need to evolve out of something,
right, yeah.
right?
I suppose I mentioned those words because I'm looking at also doing more interviews on people that have served long-term life sentences for murder, and
Mhm,
also yeah, going more into that work as well. Um, and
mhm,
it's interesting, speaking to people that have served much time in prison, and the
mhm,
experience that they've had to go through, and the kind of forgiveness that they've had to try to show themselves
mhm.
and their victims as well. Um, that's why I mentioned that, I guess, because it's my own
Yeah,
sort of like.
because everything's a learning experience, right? So I've suffered a lot. I've had a lot of experiences where I was physically abused, and my boundaries weren't, I wasn't safe in certain experiences, and I did truly allow myself to have compassion and love and forgive that entire experience and not fall into it. But you do have to face that darkness. We all have to face that darkness, and we have to see what it's teaching us because it is here and it is across the planet, and we have to see what the purpose of it is until we don't need it anymore in our lives.
How do you discern? How do you discern in the sort of being in this field of
Yeah.
what feels right and well, not just even feels right, but there's so many ways of looking at the same thing, isn't there?
hmm So the simplest thing, and I talk about this actually a lot in the book because I went through a phase of seeing my own dark patterns of manipulating others, right? And when you are doing something and immediately after you do that thing, you regret it, then you need to have discernment. Why are you doing that thing? What is attached to you, right? What are you dipping into that is not of your higher self, that you are allowing for an experience to occur in your life to have that duality, right? To have that view of polarity. So I don't really like to say light and dark because then people can put context into what they think is light and what they think is dark. Sometimes what you think is light really is dark, right? So to gauge exactly, and there's a lot of false light out there and there's a lot of false prophets, and I talk all about that, which is why I'm like higher self, your own knowing, what feels right to you, go into your heart, because when you go into that place, then you can't go wrong.
Well, then you're your own guru, then, in a sense, aren't you? You don't need a guru. You find your own
Yeah, we
path,
all
don't you?
are.
Yeah.
I laughed so much because when my PR person like booked everything and I started to look at your work and I saw the docuseries They Are Channelers, we laughed so hard because I specifically did a video on like I'm not a damn channel. Like I'm not. Like I have this
Are you
information
sure? Are
and
you sure?
it's coming
Yeah,
through.
through your higher
Like,
self.
don't call me a channel because it's me, right? It's me. It's not some other
No,
entity.
well, I had a channeler on just the other day who who channels higher self, but the word channeling, I'm reinventing it. Okay,
Yes,
I'm going to
thank you.
reinvent it on my docu series. We're only on number 41 right now, and there's a 40 more to go, right, of this docu series,
Yeah.
right? But it's all it is really it's a funnel. It's opening your
Yes.
high. It's opening that funnel up and letting the greater part of your soul through. Some
Yes.
people call channeling that they take on a personality, and that can happen. That does happen, but really, it's an aspect of them. It was always along. It's just they're
Always.
doing their best to bring it through in that way, you know. But yeah, look, we channel. A psychic's a channeler, a medium's a channeler. You know, channeling is just another word for, like I say, allowing more of yourself through
To come through,
to
yeah.
come
And
through.
like
Yeah,
one biggest thing that I really want people to understand is that make sure you know that it's just an aspect of you, right? So that you're not giving your power to that being. Make sure you know that you guys are at the same level. Make sure you know that you, if it is in your desire to incorporate all of that, you can always integrate that being into yourself. You can always integrate that aspect into yourself because along my journey and using my intuition, there are many beings that have come in to communicate with me. And I'm like, I don't want spirit guides. Don't talk to me. I am my own guardian. But usually, when you're working with people, all their guides want to come in and talk to you. And I try to create it in such a way where I make sure that the person in front of me knows that yes, the guide is giving you this information, but you have access to the information directly. Use the middleman in the way the middleman meant to be used,
sure.
right?
Yeah, absolutely, and and I respect everyone's opinion on channeling, and I think it is going to be a growth area in a sense where there'll
Yeah.
be more and more people using it for them, so they'll be channeling their higher selves or they'll be channeling
Yeah.
themselves. That was the main point of the docu-series, which was to show that
Yeah.
we are that what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Then I
Yeah.
just got
And I
carried.
really actually loved it because one thing that I saw that really amazed me when I came into spirituality was like all of the alien beings or cosmic beings that
Yeah,
were coming in and communicating, and I was like, well, where I wanted to know more. Where are you coming from? Where are you located? And I wanted to feel into all. I love the multidimensional realms, and I love astral traveling and doing all of those things. But also, we started the conversation with like, but we're here on 3D, right?
yeah.
So like, how is it important? How is it relevant here on 3D?
Exactly. That's been that is my biggest thing is keeping it grounded,
Mm-hmm.
and not giving our. I mean, sometimes it's nice, to get a house spring cleaned by someone else and go into someone like you to have a spring cleaning, right? We don't always want
Yeah.
to clean it ourselves, yeah, but and I think that's important. I mean, I get readings now and then because I just can't, but
Mm-hmm.
we do have the power ourselves. That's the main point of
Mm-hmm.
this conversation as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much we could say right now that obviously we're getting now to 50 something minutes. And as we touched on there, you're a big supporter of that we live in a holographic universe as well, and that the multi-dimensional reality. Where do you see with your work where you're going to go? Where are you going? Do you think with this type of work?
So where I'm going is full integration of higher self for
Simple as
everyone.
that.
No,
Yeah,
for those that want it,
yeah.
right? Full
For
integration of
everyone, I
higher
like
self. So
that.
that
Yeah, yeah.
for everyone that
It's
wants
funny.
it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, because what I do see is this awakened living on our planet.
yeah,
This and when I say awakened living, doesn't mean everybody's just blissed out in la la land with rainbows and unicorns all over the place.
yeah.
It's just conscious awareness, no veil. No veil. You know who you come in and you don't forget that you have a higher self. You come in knowing that you have a 3D body, you have higher self, knowing that there are multiple dimensions that you can access, knowing that there are other races of beings that we have access to, but being able to do it with transparency and not having it dictated to us, or not having, the government maybe in charge of certain things, or, everybody knows a lot is going on in different places. But my purpose for this work is for you to come into your awareness and your knowing, so that you are in control of that experience of the multidimensional field. And so that you can integrate your higher self and act from that place and create from that place the life that you want to experience.
Yes, yes. And there was one question that I said I was going to come back to previously, and that's sort of just coming back to you as well, in a sense that obviously you've been connecting to this higher aspect of yourself for a while now. So what has that done for you with your personal life as well? I mean, how has it changed you? I mean,
It has changed everything. I mean, I would say that after merging with source and experiencing that and knowing that I have access to this greater field of energy, and I don't have to just rely on 3D for my energy, or like food, or what, like, just certain things that are here to sustain me, knowing that there is more energy that can come in. That changed everything, number one, because then I was no longer like grasping or attaching to things that I thought I needed. And a lot of, addictions and things that I had just completely fell away. And I was able to liberate from that. And then I was able to liberate myself from my relationship with, my marriage. I was able to come out on my own and stand on my own 2 feet, and then create abundance through my gifts.
And then with the marriage, I mean, did you ever meet anyone else after that that was in alignment with the way you thought, or has it been a bit of a solo journey and you've been working on yourself?
So I was celibate for about 3 years, just working on myself, going deeper. And then recently I just got married again.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Like very, very recently, probably just a month ago.
So if I had interviewed you just a bit before that, you would have said, "Hey, that's never happening. Yeah. Okay, fair enough."
I would have been like, no one can meet me at my level,
Yeah. And was he, if you don't mind, was he into the same subjects in a sense?
So what's very interesting is that now my partner is female.
Congratulations.
So,
Sorry,
yeah,
I mean,
thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So
A lot of things change.
So you've been finding yourself at a much deeper level than you'd ever would have. Well, that takes a lot of guts to even come out with that, and to say that I fully support that. That's a beautiful thing. It doesn't matter who you're with, what sex. Do you know what I mean? If you can find happiness and love, that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing.
Because it's like when you get to that place with higher self, there's no gender, and you don't see gender. You just see pure love. You just know that a person can meet you at a level, and I'm crazy multidimensional, and then for her to be able to see the things that I can see multidimensionally. And also, she was on my team helping me create the company before we realized that we wanted to have a relationship.
Yeah.
And it was completely professional, and she was helping me build everything with the school on the back end. And then I called my entire team to come meet in person, and then it was like that situation of like love at first sight. Okay, this is going to be something
good
here, and it just came out of left field.
Yeah, and again, that was a journey that you had to go through. You had to go through that solitude. You had to find yourself. You had to go through all that. And some people don't want to go through that work. That is also true. Some people want to avoid that like the plague, literally. So but
they want to leave one relationship and then like jump into another, thinking that it's
straight back in. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, but that happens a lot, and I so. Wow. Okay. So, well, you've been through a busy time, and I know there's a lot going on right now. Because where are you at right now? You're at
I'm in Malta.
Malta. You're at a conference. You're putting You did.
I'm hosting a retreat. So we just had 3 cohorts of our school of the 8th chakra activation. So now we're doing an in-person retreat just to get everyone into their collective blueprint now and harmonize together as a collective field. So super multidimensional work about to happen, and that's coming up next week.
Well, I know it's late where you are, so I'm going to let you get going. And I just want to say, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a complete treat to have you on, especially as one of my first interviews back in a while, because I've been on the road for a long time, be going back out again at some point. But yeah, thanks for bearing with us. And your website one more time is?
So eighth chakra, and it's not 100%, but it's eighth chakra wisdom.teachable.com.
Okay.
But we'll definitely have links with all the dashes.
Yeah. People could be able to find that in the description below. Well, much love and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. You're amazing. Thank you.